This is definitely something of a signature dish I'm going to show you today. It's a chocolate truffle flavoured with low temperature vacuum distilled scotch bonnet chilies, which has all the delicate, fresh, bright aromatics of the chilies, but with no heat at all. And so when you eat this, it's such a delicious but counterintuitive experience because you're getting these fresh aromatics and flavours of the chilies and then waiting for this heat to kick in that just never comes. And this allows you to experience the flavours of the chilies in a way that you just never could normally, because usually that sheer amount of heat would just obliterate the flavours you're experiencing. So I'll explain the process and what's going on here a little bit more before we go a bit more in depth on the recipe. The piece of equipment that lets me do this magical thing of capturing and isolating the flavours and aromas of the chilies without their heat is the Rotavap. I've done some videos about the Rotavap and how I use it for distillation, to make my own gin and to concentrate flavours, but the easiest way to understand it is like a still for distilling, but it hooks up to a vacuum, and that can drop the pressure in the still, and in a vacuum liquids boil at a lower temperature, so you can make distillations without ever heating the mixture up above room temperature, and that means you can preserve delicate flavours that might otherwise be damaged by heat. It's that unique ability to isolate flavours and preserve their vibrancy that makes the Rotavap such an exciting piece of equipment to me as a chef. It's all about flavour and the ability to preserve and express the character of an ingredient as purely as possible. So for this dish, I make an incredibly strong mixture of Scotch bonnet chilies and alcohol. I'm blending a kilo of fresh Scotch bonnet chilies into about 500 ml of alcohol. It's really intense. Then I'm distilling that Scotch bonnet mixture through the Rotavap at low temperature, so I can capture those beautiful fresh aromatics that are just like breaking into fresh chilies, but I don't damage that at all with heat. And then the other thing that's cool with this Rotavap distillation is that capsaicin that makes chilies hot is too heavy of a molecule to distill. So all of the flavours and aromatics from the chilies travel over to one side, but all the heat stays on the first side. And I end up with this distillation that's sort of like an edible perfume of chilies with all those beautiful fresh aromatics but no heat to it, no spice at all. And then that beautiful, really unique distillation is going to be the main flavour in my truffles, but it's also really important to me to choose just the right chocolate to work with that. So I use this double fermented Valrhona chocolate, and this is really beautiful and again very unique in itself. So to make this chocolate, the cocoa beans are fermented as they normally would be for a chocolate, but then they go through a second fermentation in the pulp of passion fruit that grows around the cocoa plantation. So you get this passion fruit flavour infusing into the chocolate at that fermentation stage, and you get a really clear flavour of passion fruit in the chocolate, although there's no fruit itself in the actual finished chocolate. So I use this double fermented passion fruit chocolate as the base for my truffles. And to make the truffles, first of all we need to melt that chocolate to 50 degrees, and then I'll let it gently cool down to 40. Next, I mix cream with trimoline, glucose and salt, heat that up to a simmer, and then I also cool that down to around 40 degrees. And then I mix this cream mixture into my chocolate in 3 additions. Then once the mixture drops below 34 degrees, I add in some tempered cocoa butter to help with the texture. I've done a video about how I make tempered cocoa butter and use it to temper chocolate, so you can always go and give that a watch, or you could just add in some store-bought cocoa butter if you'd prefer. Now I emulsify in my Scotch bonnet distillation with a stick blender, along with a little bit of lime juice and a pinch of salt. I pipe my mixture into sphere moulds and then freeze them before unmoulding my chocolates, so I can get these nice, neat, spherical chocolate truffles. I intentionally don't coat my chocolate truffles because I want the fermented pineapple and passion fruit class that I make as an important part of this dish to just lightly adhere to the outside of these truffles. The fruit glass is made with Tepache, which is a fermented pineapple drink that's popular in Mexico. I really love making this. It's got a really beautiful flavour and it's got a really interesting complexity. I mix that with passion fruit and make these crispy little sheets of fruit glass, and that's what's going to sit either side of my chocolate truffle to finish this dish. So I served my chocolate truffles in these beautiful ceramic rings made by the fantastic ceramicist Becky Morris, who I regularly collaborate with. And she made me these beautiful ceramic rings, and I think they're just the perfect thing to serve this dish in. It's so unique and unusual in its flavours that it's really nice to have this very unique way of presenting it to the guests too. I really like having the negative space that the dish just sits within. It frames it beautifully and it just makes it something even more special. And so that's it, this is the finished dish. It's really minimal in that it's just two elements, the distilled Scotch bonnet chili truffles and the fermented pineapple glass. But I really like working on dishes like this where there's sort of nowhere to hide and you're expressing the flavours as clearly as possible and trying to balance them as beautifully as you can. I hope you found this interesting, and if you have, I've got other videos on distillation and some other ways that I use the Rotavap, or on how I make that Mexican fermented Tepache, as well as some of the other influences from cooking out in Mexico that have made it into my cuisine. So have a little look through the videos and see if you find anything else interesting. Please give me a like and hit subscribe, and I will see you soon.